In this video, I'm going to be taking a closer look at David's mysterious trip to Santa Barbara, where we now know he apparently tried to get rid of evidence related to the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez that he's been accused of doing, followed by a brutal alleged, not even alleged at this point, but dismemberment in his garage where they found blood. It's messed up. But in this video, we're just going to focus on this trip to Santa Barbara and the allegedly blatant and foolish misguided attempts to destroy evidence connected to this murder. This guy is deep fried. So this has been reported by TMZ. They're basically reporting on how Celeste's ID was recovered from a remote area in Santa Barbara. And this is very unlucky that somebody just happened upon her passport. David, it was already badly covered up crime, but stuff like this is just the icing on the cake. Okay, says prosecutors say David disposed of Celeste's personal items in a remote area of Santa Barbara County after he murdered her in his Hollywood Hills home. Her ID was found off a highway in the area described, and we now know how it was recovered. Caltrans tells TMZ a maintenance worker performing traffic control on SR 154 east of Painted Cave Road on January the 7th, 2026, looked down in the brush and discovered Celeste's passport card. That's about 100 miles northwest of the Hollywood Hills in a wooded mountainous region. But how did it get there? It says we're told that the Caltrans worker reported the finding to his supervisor, who contacted the California Highway Patrol. Caltrans said CHP they came and collected Celeste's passport card, and then detectives from an unknown law enforcement agency, could be FBI, could be LAPD, returned on January 17th to interview the maintenance worker and his supervisor. LAPD was investigating Celeste's death, so it sounds like that's the law enforcement agency mentioned. It's very interesting. So obviously the news of this went around on Reddit, and some of the Reddit detectives sprung into action as they normally do. And they basically gave a map of exactly where the passport was found. Okay, it says this is where Celeste's passport card was found on January 2026, just east of Painted Cave Road on the SR 154, as per TMZ. So this actually is the exact spot where the passport was found. He probably threw it out the window. It could have been blown. It could have been brushed along. You know, it just becomes debris at that point. But that's apparently where it was found, on the side of the road. And he thought he was so smart. He thought he was so smart no one would ever find it. But we found it, people. People are saying, who knows what other evidence he threw in that area that hasn't been found? It's just by chance that someone found her passport, unless he dumped it there along with other items, and those just haven't been found or mentioned by the prosecution yet. So not to be dark, but I wonder if the two fingers are there somewhere, or perhaps buried. He did order a shovel after all, so who knows what he hid? But I think most of her personal belongings would be in that area, right? He was saying it's just crazy that he made all the effort to get rid of the fingers because of the tattoo when he has so much of a digital footprint that clearly shows him as a predator. Discord logs, photos, everything, etc. The guy is a moron. Saying, I mean, if he hadn't left her body in his damn car, she might have never been identified at all. After a while, all that digital footprint would have been forgotten fully. Her body was too decomposed for any usual means of initial identification. They only verified her identity via dental records after the mother recognized the shush tattoo on a finger that he didn't cut off. And they likely only contacted her because police were aware that Celeste was with David previously when she was reported missing. It's not like the police have a database of dental records they can search. Those have to be requested specifically from the dentist once an initial potential idea has been made. I guess my point is he put effort into certain things, but then zero effort into the exact things that got him caught. I'm so glad he did, because otherwise he could have so easily gotten away with this. I hope it torments him every day, even if he isn't haunted by the innocent life he look. I hope he's tortured by his own epic stupidity that sealed his fate. It's a good point. People making some good points. Someone says, random question, why wouldn't someone just cut up and destroy things like that? Why drive out of your way to abandon something in its full state? Right? So I know this sub hates TMZ, but Harvey Levin said that you can't use logic to understand this case. I pretty much agree with that. He drove all the way there to dispose of the evidence, 2.5 hours one way considering LA traffic on the way out, and he kept texting her phone as though he didn't know she was dead, so he clearly did care about covering his tracks. But then he orders chainsaws and body bags from Amazon with his own car directly to his address and dismembers her in the garage, leaving bloodstains, and finally leaves the body for months in his car before ultimately letting it sit there while he goes on tour. I'm slowly coming to the conclusion that he thought he could afford to be sloppy. He might have figured no one would look into her disappearance because she was a kid from a poor town who ran away several times. And until the body was found, he was pretty much right. He had 4 months of touring and partying without a care in the world until his car was towed. Yeah. People saying, I wonder if he dumped the fingers somewhere around there. People thinking that too. Turns out to be more and more of a tweaker the more information we get. People saying this is the realest comment. I gave my explanation of this on another post, how he was legit on drugs and that's how he got through that. And someone told me that I was blaming drugs and not blaming him. This is a psychopath on drugs. Anyone who's been around drugs knows anything about drugs knows that. Heroin addicts won't hang out with people who do meth. Why? Because they're effing scary. I've done either. I've known many people who've done both, and that's how I know. I will say I was in the drug scene. Says he seemed obsessed with gore and pain. He went about everything like in a druggy confidence. He might have killed her sober, but his actions afterwards lean towards drug usage to me. Right? He says, I'm sorry, I'm just baffled. Why would he drive all that way to toss the passport out on the side of the road? Is it possible he left it somewhere in the actual woods and it blew in the wind? Not even then. No, even then, why would he drive all that way to dispose of evidence, then leave the freaking evidence completely intact and above ground? Nerves of planning a motive, stupid ass kid. Can sound intellectual in a video for the world, but a dumbass in reality. Hope that boy thinking, scared up in the towers. So, interestingly enough, TMZ had actually previously reported that David was not alone during these Santa Barbara trips. Now, can we potentially say that this is another example of TMZ lying and spreading misinformation to the people? Or did the prosecution just conveniently leave out that David might have had an accomplice for all of this? So, says Celeste Reaver, second suspect identified, the last person to use David's Tesla. Doesn't really add up now, does it? Now they're saying David was the last person to drive the car. It looks like he's in the whip holding his nose, driving past the security camera. So is it possible that TMZ is full of shit? Maybe.
They not only got the records that support what you were saying is 100%, that he took a trip to Santa Barbara County, but they now also, they've got his social media and have tied up social media with some of the trips, and they've got cell phone records that they have poured over, and they have triangulated this to the point where it's eerie. I saw this 10 years ago in another murder case that I had, but when it was in the infancy stages, they've got a chart at LAPD that you would not believe. They've got this thing down to a timeline that's almost by the minutes triangulated to the location, if you can believe that. And it's not just one source. When I say triangulated, it's media, social media, cell phone, Tesla, other, and all I'll say is other kind of GPS tracking devices, if you will. And it's really, I used to joke, or my father used to joke, LAPD is lost and presumed destroyed. They actually have elevated their game, and this is quite a feat of investigation so far.
So let me tell you what we know, because it aligns with what you just said, that in the spring, David took a trip to a very remote area of Santa Barbara County in the middle of the night and spent several hours there. We have also been told, yes, there is another suspect, but the suspect is somebody they believe helped him dismember the body, because what we were told by multiple sources is they believe that more than one person dismembered the body. Now, I don't think they can conclude that just by looking at it. I mean, look, Jeffrey Dahmer dismembered a body completely, and he did it alone.
So I think TMZ are making some wild assumptions that David had help. The prosecution are now not saying anyone helped David, unless somebody completely flipped on him and gave full-blown testimony and they're just leaving him out of it. It sounds like TMZ were capping. We'll see, okay? But moving on, okay, according to reports, Celeste ID was found east of the Painted Cave Road intersection, most likely meaning that David, when he went on this little trip, he most likely turned into Painted Cave Road. So that's this sort of little turning here. And basically the ID was kind of found east of this intersection. So it would have been found over here by the sounds of it. So if we zoom in, let's jump in right in the middle of the intersection. So it was found around here, right? Right. So if that's the north, that's the east of the intersection. Found around here. And it's believed that David maybe made this turn. He might have made this right turn, threw it out the window over here somewhere, perhaps. Thinking no one's ever going to come up here. No one's going to come up to Painted Cave Road and look for the ID of my victim. So somebody's actually got a video of the road and the surrounding area. So we can actually get a feel for what David was looking at when he did this ridiculous crime. Okay, so look, this is a guy having a little joyride up there, okay? And you can kind of see the landscape. It's actually beautiful up there. It looks like a beautiful, nice, windy road to go and drive. I wouldn't mind like pushing a little Porsche convertible around these sort of parts. It's beautiful, okay? But he was a dummy because he did all of that. He did all this driving up to this beautiful remote location to dump the evidence inside his own Tesla, registered to his name, and the car's recording the whole time. Very stupid. Now, according to reports, he would actually keep returning to another isolated place on the way to Lake Cachuma. So it could have been anywhere sort of along this road. Here, as you can see, he kind of apparently drove along this road several times, and he could have dumped any number of things along this road throughout this time. Okay, so he's sort of driven his way out of Los Angeles, quite far, Santa Barbara, all the way up here. He gone a long ass way. Okay, how far are we going? Oh my god! Oh my god! Yeah, gone a long way. Okay, so yeah. I don't know why you would be so dumb to go all the way out there to dump evidence in a car that's tracking you the whole way. He apparently returned to several remote locations up there. And, you know, a lot of people have been discussing this area in Santa Barbara and the mountains and all these areas where David was allegedly, you know, going for these trips. Now, this is 5 months ago people are talking about this. So this, bear in mind, we've had these reports months ago. People were wondering what this is all about. Now we finally know what this is about, but it's interesting to go back and look at some of what people were saying when it was first revealed he'd been going on these weird little trips in the night. So there's a Santa Barbara trip and Santa Ynez Mountains. After the reports of David's whereabouts in Santa Barbara County, spring 2025, in the middle of the night for several hours, I checked a bit about the region, and it is quite small with a lot of landscapes and remote areas. The towns are also very small with no big buildings like in LA. It gives chill and historic rural vibes. The more recent population census is about 400k, and the crime rate for homicide and violent crimes is considerably low. Currently, there's a big missing case in Lompoc, Santa Barbara County, involving a child missing after a road trip with her mother. With the latest reports of David's activity in the same county this year, maybe some local focused investigation will come to light. Okay. It's not really a place where someone drives in the middle of the night on a total of a 4-hour trip and stays there for several hours before returning. He literally spent the entire dawn there and traveled back to LA. Plus, if this is the specific location, if this specific location is related to the Celeste death in any way, he would need to know the area beforehand or someone local in order to help and guide him through the remote areas like the Santa Ynez Valley, the Santa Ynez Mountains, and the Camino Cielo. There are caves, even pumas can show up and hunt at night. Lastly, I leave some YouTube links showing the mountains and landscape in Santa Barbara County so people can have an idea of how big and hazardous these remote areas can be. Even if you drive a car, there's a lot of dirt and tight roads. After watching it, you'll understand why a trip there at night makes zero sense even for locals. Whatever David had to do there was really, really bad. Someone saying, hi, I'm from this area too, actually raised in the Camino Cielo area, and I'd like to give some info. These are heavily trafficked areas. Even in January, the amount of hikers, campers, hunters, Forest Service, firefighters, and residents that walk the area is so common. Camino Cielo is where people go to take pretty photos of their cars and to shoot their guns. It loops around the canyon. The painted caves are touristy. Anything right off 154 is pretty much not a good place to dump anything. The same with the 101. I can see some areas like the dam being a bit more remote, but the roads are covered with scenic turnouts. You'd really have to throw it to get it far away enough. There's nothing to do in SB as teenagers except drive these stupid back roads at night. Kids are up in those hills by nap, smoking pot or drinking till they get run off by locals. I was back in this area in March to help my dad move out. Without doxing myself too much, I basically grew up in a cabin in the middle of the woods there, lol. Okay. So people are just giving their thoughts on the area. I do think it's really fascinating. It says it's possible that he took the body there to dismember so there would be no blood evidence in his apartment. Lol, he wasn't that smart. Or could they have just left the body there early on to dry out and then dismember after that? Take it back to his apartment where he would use the thing Steve Fisher said he had bought to make the remains disappear. Steve was pretty right after all. All right. It says, I think the animals would have found and removed a body left out in nature. Coyotes and mountain lions live around there. Interesting. Okay. So Redditors would kind of be discussing why he would choose these areas. And people were pretty baffled, but there are some reasons. This would talk about why Lake Cachuma. Why would David go up here? It says, is Is it because it's used as a local water source, with swimming being banned since its creation in 1953, that if he carried out his eventual planning of dumping her at the bottom of the lake, nobody would have ever found her? So swimming has been banned at the lake because it's used as a local water source. That's been the case since the US Bureau of Reclamation created the lake in 1953 by constructing the Bradbury Dam, then called the Cachuma Dam, thereby blocking the flow of the Santa Ynez River. The lake is still owned by the Bureau of Reclamation, though it's managed by the county. So it says this was meant to be a weird post, hopefully to entice Remy back. I don't know what it's all about. It says he made 3 trips out there. One was on the night of the murder. That he made 2 more trips after he dismembered her on May the 8th and May the 31st. You would think that if his plans were to put the body in the lake, that he would have taken that opportunity at least one of the 3 times he visited. But then again, Mr. I just bought a bunch of shit off Amazon after her murder because I hadn't thought of step 2 probably lacked the executive function for that level of planning. He would probably have had to buy a canoe, buy something to secure the canoe to his car, find a spot along the shore where he can push it off and hope that his Tesla can get in and out of there. That's just off the top of the dome. I've already put more into this plan than he did. Okay, people saying maybe he was scoping out the lake on those trips. He was going to dump the remains in the local water source. That is crazy. So Steve Fisher has actually popped out with some new theories of his own as well when it comes to Santa Barbara. And this is his opinion, okay, on a recent post just 20 hours ago. It says, I can't stop thinking about the timeline of the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez as put forward in a pre-trial brief. Could the 10:30 p.m. "Where are you?" text message actually be real and not a staged alibi? Could Celeste have walked away after an argument upon arriving in the Uber? Maybe those texts from David asking where she was were real. After he didn't receive a response, he went looking for her, found her, and then they ended up driving to Santa Barbara County where the killing actually occurred. He could have shut her phone off when finding her. In that scenario, her body could have remained along SR 154 for roughly 12 days until the pool, body bag, laundry bags, and chainsaws were delivered. It's also worth noting that the pool was ordered after her death, meaning it would not have contained blood from the actual killing. The DA's version of events is a very compressed timeline. Arrival of 10:10, a fatal stabbing, then being composed enough to send an alibi text by 10:30 p.m. That's a 20-minute window. They also claimed the trip to Santa Barbara that evening was to start disposing of evidence. However, the evidence had not even been purchased yet. Well, the knife would have been. The pool, the chainsaw, shovel, and other items had not been ordered at the time of the first Santa Barbara trip. There's also a question of storing a body at his manager Josh Marshall's rental house for 12 days while waiting for tools, with nearby neighbors and decomposition odors likely becoming noticeable within a few days, all while David was out of town and having to trust that nobody would enter a house that wasn't even leased to him. None of this changes the central point that David is responsible. He killed Celeste, that I'm certain of. Like I said, the DA is likely correct in their theory. They're working with all the evidence. Really, really interesting point, okay? People are saying none of this changes the central point. David is responsible. He killed Celeste, okay? But it says, when he was texting her, her phone was pinging in his house. I doubt she took off and left the phone behind. So people don't believe that. I don't usually have a problem with SF, but this sounds like any of the 12-year-olds who post wild theories here because they want to feel smart and make the case more complex than it is. People saying Steve sucks. He falsely accused a missing boy's biological dad of abuse and claimed he saw proof of a CPS report. He also made taunts towards the same father and told him, go sue me. Sounds very familiar. He made false accusations about Neo, and Neo told him to go and sue him. I remember reading about this case and realized that's where Steve was from. He was hired by that boy's mother and stepfather to butter them up, knowing that they were also not the best parents. People saying, honestly, I hope the Uber driver is a witness and may possibly provide more context on Celeste if he recalls anything at all, especially if he saw her enter the property. It says, while the other scenario is plausible, this is just plain stupid. People saying Steve needs to shut up. All right. Now, yeah, it's not making sense, but it's interesting. Okay, so look, I think that he did make these trips to dispose of evidence. I honestly think that there's no other explanation other than he dumped the fingers out there. I know it's really, really messed up to even talk about that, but that's what I think happened. I think he went over there to dispose of evidence. I think he threw away the knife. It doesn't sound like they've got the knife. I think he threw away the fingers. I think he was on this crazy anime, probably cut the fingers off with a knife, but he couldn't cut the rest of the body up without a chainsaw. And he probably, yeah, threw away the ID, probably maybe trashed her phone, maybe destroyed the phone. I don't know. But it's a mess, and he's cooked. All right, that's the end of it. That's the video. That's all the information that I had on the Santa Barbara trip that's new, that's interesting, and I'm just going to wait for some updates. I believe there's another trial date on the 26th. We might get some more information between now and then. I know there's some new stuff coming out about the families and stuff, but I'm going to wait and see. I've got 2 other topics completely unrelated to David that I'm going to be doing today, so I'm going to move on to those next. But thank you for watching this one. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.